The conquest of Messenia marked a radical transformation for Sparta, turning it from an ordinary city into a state whose very existence was defined by overwhelming fear. Spartans lived in constant dread of a potential Helot revolt, feared being overcome by their numerical superiority, and worried about losing control over the subjugated population. Tens of thousands of Helots became an unspoken yet pervasive force, influencing every political decision. Every reform, law, or entrenched tradition was designed to keep the Helots subservient and ensure Spartan dominance. Despite their martial prowess, the Spartans constituted a relatively small proportion of the population. Even at their peak, their numbers did not exceed 8,000 full citizens, and this figure steadily declined over time. To gain full citizenship, it was not enough to simply be born a Spartan. One had to successfully complete the rigorous Agoge training and consistently participate in communal meals. Failure to meet any of these requirements resulted in exclusion from citizenship. This led to the formation of an elite military caste, perched at the apex of the social pyramid, sustained by oppression and elaborate rituals. To maintain power over the ever-growing number of Helots, the Spartans further entrenched their militaristic way of life. Boys continued to be raised in the Agoge, separated from their families and subjected to harsh physical and psychological trials. They were taught to fight as a single unit, to endure hardship stoically, and to obey orders without question. The ideal Spartan was not a flamboyant lone hero, but a silent and deadly cog in a vast military machine. The Spartans legalized what was essentially a permanent state of emergency. Each year, upon taking office, the ephors declared war on the Helots. This legal fiction allowed any Spartan to kill a Helot without fear of reprisal. The most promising young Spartans were sent on the Cryptia, a secret operation during which they tracked down and murdered potential leaders or any Helot who seemed too strong, proud, or free-spirited. This state-sanctioned terror was the price of their dominance, and for some time, it proved a highly effective means of maintaining control. Domestically, the Spartans zealously guarded the ideal of equality, where luxury and extravagance were frowned upon. Gold and silver coins, symbols of wealth, were banished, replaced by bulky iron bars, which hindered the accumulation of wealth and trade. Land was divided into equitable plots, worked by Helots, to support the warrior class. Communal meals, bringing citizens together at a simple table, served as a guarantee of modesty and temperance. Extravagance was scorned, and personal life was minimized, for every Spartan belonged entirely to the state. Spartan women enjoyed freedoms unavailable to their contemporaries in other Greek city-states. They were expected to be strong in mind and body, engaging in physical exercise, running, wrestling, and competing in athletic contests. Their primary role was to bear and raise strong sons for Sparta, but they also managed estates and controlled considerable wealth. As Spartan men spent most of their lives in barracks away from home, women wielded real power in the domestic sphere. Many Greeks from other city-states observed with astonishment the boldness of Spartan women, their confident public presence, direct speech, and independence. However, for Sparta, this was the norm. The state could not afford weak mothers or idle daughters. Every member of society had a vital role. In its political structure, Sparta maintained a diarchy, with two kings from different royal houses ruling simultaneously. These kings led the army and performed religious rites, but their power was constrained by other institutions. The Gerousia, a council of elders, guided policy and served as the highest court. 5 annually elected ephors held broad powers, including the right to depose kings. All male citizens over 30 participated in assemblies, but debates were limited, and decisions were made by unanimous approval. This unusual blend of monarchy, oligarchy, and limited democracy provided Sparta with remarkable political stability. While other Greek city-states were rocked by rebellions, coups, and tyranny, Sparta avoided civil wars and major political upheavals for centuries. Sparta, known for its asceticism and military might, achieved unique stability in the ancient Greek world. However, this stability came at a cost, manifesting in cultural stagnation, economic inflexibility, and population decline. Despite its militaristic image, Sparta's early history was not devoid of art and culture. Before militarization became all-encompassing, Spartans created exquisite pottery, actively engaged in trade, and composed beautiful poetry. The poetic works of Alcman, for instance, exhibited remarkable elegance. Tertius, a war poet, inspired Spartan warriors in battle with his verses, urging them to bravery and honor. Yet, over time, these cultural expressions gradually vanished, giving way to silence and an exclusive focus on physical endurance. Sparta's foreign policy was characterized by caution and conservatism. Unlike Athens or Corinth, Sparta did not seek to establish numerous colonies or naval dominance. Its efforts were directed at strengthening its influence in its immediate vicinity. Through a series of treaties and bilateral alliances, Sparta formed the Peloponnesian League, as modern historians call it. This coalition included cities such as Corinth, Elis, and Tegea, which were obliged to follow Sparta in military campaigns while retaining their autonomy in other matters. The sole known exception was the colony of Taras, modern Taranto, in southern Italy, founded by exiled youths, perhaps those who had failed the rigorous Spartan Agoge system. Overall, Spartan diplomacy was inward-looking, defensive, and avoided foreign entanglement. However, the situation changed in the early 5th century BC when the Persian Empire began its westward expansion. Greek cities in Asia Minor, under Persian rule, rebelled. Athens and Eretria offered assistance, but Sparta refused. The Spartan king declared that the journey to the Persian capital was too far. Nevertheless, in 490 BC, when the Persians invaded mainland Greece, the situation fundamentally shifted. At the Battle of Marathon, it was Athens, not Sparta, that single-handedly halted the Persian advance. The Spartans arrived late, citing religious obligations. This moment became a turning point in relations between Athens and Sparta, and the Athenians never forgot it. A decade later, the Persian Empire reasserted itself, demonstrating an unbroken spirit and a thirst for revenge. In 480 BC, Xerxes, the Persian leader, at the head of a formidable army, invaded Greece, aiming to subjugate the defiant city-states. This time, Sparta, renowned for its military might and discipline, did not stand aside. The Congress of Greek City-States, recognizing the gravity of the threat, elected Sparta as the leader of the land forces, entrusting it with the defense of Hellas. King Leonidas I, the legendary Spartan ruler, marched north with a contingent of 300 elite warriors, his personal guard, as well as several thousand allies, ready to defend their homeland. In the narrow Thermopylae Pass, seemingly made for defense, the Greeks took up position, intending to repel the enemy. For 2 days, they steadfastly repelled fierce attacks from the Persian soldiers, preventing them from advancing further inland. However, betrayal nullified their efforts. A traitor showed the Persians a secret path, allowing them to outflank the Greek positions and encircle the defenders. Leonidas, understanding the hopelessness of the situation, dismissed most of the allies, giving them a chance to escape. But he himself, along with the 300 Spartans, 700 Thespians, and a handful of other warriors, decided to stay and fight to the death. They fought with the desperation of the doomed, using every available means. Spears shattered, swords broke, and they resorted to fists, teeth, anything that could help them in the unequal struggle. Leonidas fell in battle, but his warriors, consumed by fury, continued to fight, defending his body as if it were a banner of freedom. In dying, they achieved immortality in the memory of generations. The sacrifice made by the Spartans at Thermopylae shocked the world and inspired the Greeks to continue the fight. It bought the rest of Greece precious time to prepare for the battles to come. At sea, the Athenians, with their powerful fleet, won a decisive victory at the Battle of Salamis, thwarting Persian plans to conquer the Greek islands. A year later, at Plataea, the combined forces of the Spartans and their allies inflicted a crushing defeat on the Persian army on land. In this battle, the Spartan general Pausanias led the charge, displaying outstanding leadership and bravery. The Persian forces were broken, and Greece was saved from foreign invasion. Sparta emerged from the war a hero. Its land army was considered invincible, and the discipline of Spartan warriors became legendary. Athens, in turn, strengthened its naval position and formed the Delian League, uniting many Greek city-states under its leadership. However, tensions mounted between Sparta and Athens. In the following years, Athens pursued an aggressive expansionist policy, seeking to build its own empire. They demanded tribute from allies, established control over trade routes, and spread their democratic system of government. Sparta, fearing Athens' growing power and imperial ambitions, watched these developments with increasing concern. The rivalry between the two most powerful Greek states deepened, and minor conflicts frequently erupted, foreshadowing a major war. In 431 BC, the Peloponnesian War broke out, lasting almost 3 decades and becoming one of the bloodiest and most destructive conflicts in ancient Greek history. It was not a single battle, but a series of campaigns, invasions, sieges, and betrayals, in which both sides sought the complete destruction of the enemy. The Spartans annually invaded Attica, ravaging fields and destroying crops, while the Athenians, sheltered behind their impregnable long walls connecting the city to the port of Piraeus, counterattacked by sea, striking at Spartan allies and trade routes. Neither side could deliver a decisive blow, and the war dragged on, draining the resources and strength of both coalitions. In 425 BC, an unthinkable event occurred that shocked all of Greece. A group of Spartan hoplites, surrounded on the island of Sphacteria, surrendered to the Athenians. Spartans were expected to fight to the death, and their surrender was seen as an indelible disgrace. Athens displayed the captured Spartans as trophies, demonstrating its superiority. Sparta, humiliated and affronted, was forced to curb its anger and seek other ways to turn the tide of the war. But time and money were on Sparta's side. Thanks to Persian gold, obtained in exchange for a promise to cede disputed territories in Asia Minor, the Spartans were able to build a powerful navy capable of challenging the Athenian fleet. Led by the talented Admiral Lysander, the Spartans struck back. In 405 BC, at the Battle of Agoge, they destroyed the Athenian fleet, depriving Athens of supplies and reinforcements by sea. A year later, Athens, exhausted by war and famine, surrendered to the victor. Its long walls were demolished, and its empire collapsed, leaving behind only memories of past glory. Sparta emerged victorious from the Peloponnesian War, becoming the hegemon of Greece. Sparta's triumph brought new challenges. Instead of returning to its former isolation, it aspired to dominance in the Greek world. Sparta imposed oligarchic regimes on its former adversaries and dispatched harmasts, military governors, to maintain control. It even went so far as to betray its allies in Ionia, ceding them to Persia in exchange for a peace agreement. The Greeks, who had once seen Sparta as a liberator, now perceived it as yet another oppressor. The situation was compounded by the infiltration of wealth and corruption into Spartan society. Generals, while abroad, amassed fortunes, discipline waned, and ancient traditions gradually faded. In 371 BC, at the Battle of Leuctra, the Spartan illusion of greatness collapsed. The Thebans, led by Epaminondas, employed innovative tactics, crushing the Spartan army. Hundreds of elite Spartan warriors fell in this battle, including members of the ruling class. The myth of invincibility was shattered, leading to catastrophic consequences. The Thebans invaded Laconia, and for the first time in history, enemy forces approached Sparta itself. The Spartans did not engage in battle but merely watched from the hills as their lands burned. But the real blow was the liberation of Messenia by the Thebans. After nearly 3 centuries of servitude, the Messenians were granted freedom. A new city was founded, and the Helots ceased to exist as a class. With the loss of Messenia, Sparta lost its wealth, food supplies, and influence. The economic and social structure of the state was shattered. The number of full citizens, already declining, plummeted. Sparta never recovered from this blow. By the 4th century BC, desperate kings like Agis IV and Cleomenes III attempted reforms aimed at redistributing land, reviving discipline, and restoring equality. However, their efforts proved futile. Some were executed, others died in exile. Then, Macedonia emerged onto the historical stage. Under the leadership of Philip II and his son, Alexander the Great, Macedonia rose to prominence and established its dominance over Greece. Sparta refused to join the Corinthian League, remaining defiant, proud, but increasingly insignificant. When Alexander marched east, he left Sparta aside. In 331 BC, Sparta made its last desperate attempt to reclaim its former glory. King Agis III led a revolt against Macedon but was defeated and killed in battle. Sparta was spared destruction but was forced to submit to Macedonian rule. In subsequent eras, Sparta, once a formidable power, became a pale shadow of its former might. Its territories shrank, political influence waned, and independence became a mere memory. By the time the Romans arrived, the Spartans were no longer feared, rather admired as an exotic curiosity. Roman emperors honored the city with their visits, and curious travelers flocked to witness the famous Agoge firsthand. Young Spartans were still subjected to painful trials at the altar of Artemis, but this was now more of a ritual, a demonstration of ancient customs. Sparta transformed into a kind of historical museum, preserving the memory of its austere past but having lost its vitality. By the end of antiquity, the city fell into decline. Devastating earthquakes, barbarian invasions, and shifting trade routes led to it being largely abandoned. In the Middle Ages, a new city grew up nearby, and Sparta became picturesque ruins. However, the legend of its former glory lived on for centuries.